Imagine it is 12:45 a.m. The world outside your window is a muted symphony of city life, but inside your apartment in the heart of Brooklyn, the air feels thick with a restless, invisible electricity. Beneath your floorboards, you can feel it, the faint, rhythmic hum of the G-train. It's a distant vibration, a mechanical heartbeat pulsing through the joists and into your bones. But you aren't sleeping. You aren't even close. You are hunched over your neck, strained at an unnatural angle, your muscles locked in a rigid, sedentary tension. Your eyes are stinging, rimmed with red, burning from the relentless, icy blue glare of your iPhone. The light is harsh, artificial, and unforgiving, yet you find yourself unable to look away. Your thumb moves with a mind of its own, a repetitive flick of the wrist that has become a modern-day tick. One more TikTok, a girl dancing in a kitchen. One more Pinterest board, minimalist loft designs you'll never afford. One more look at a competitor's portfolio. This is the one that hurts. You scroll through their sleek layouts and high-profile client lists, and suddenly your own hard-earned work feels like amateur hour. It feels small. It feels irrelevant. This was Clara's reality. On paper, Clara was the envy of her peer group, a talented freelance graphic designer who was living the dream. Her Instagram feed was a curated masterpiece of aesthetic coffee shops and clean workspaces. But behind the digital veil, Clara was a woman slowly crumbling into dust. Her nights had devolved into a chaotic, soul-sucking blur of vampire scrolling and revenge bedtime procrastination. She wasn't searching for entertainment. She was desperately trying to reclaim the time she felt she had lost to demanding clients, endless revisions, and the suffocating weight of expectations during the day. She felt that if she just stayed awake a little longer, she could finally own a piece of her life. This is the great tragedy of the modern hustle. We have been sold a monumental lie. We've been told that winding down is a passive act, that it means turning our brains off by drowning them in digital noise. But Clara wasn't relaxing. She was numbing herself. She was treating her consciousness like a flickering candle and trying to put it out with a fire hose of information. Every single morning she paid the price in full. She woke up with what she called a digital hangover. Before her eyes were even fully open, her hand would grope across the nightstand for her phone, checking emails before she had even taken a breath of morning air. She was starting every day in energy debt, spending capital she didn't have, drifting further into a deficit of the soul. If this sounds like your life, I want you to know that you are not alone. You are part of a global epidemic of the exhausted. But what if the secret to doubling your productivity, reclaiming your joy, and finding your creative spark again isn't a 4 a.m. ice bath or a complex biohacking supplement? What if the answer is hidden in the final 30 minutes before your head hits the pillow? The breaking point didn't happen in Brooklyn. It happened thousands of miles away during a prestigious art residency in London. Clara had traveled across the Atlantic with a heavy suitcase and an even heavier heart, hoping that a change of scenery would reignite the spark that had gone dark months ago. Instead, she found herself standing on the foggy banks of the River Thames, staring into the murky gray water. The London mist felt like a physical manifestation of her own mind, a thick, impenetrable soup of half-finished thoughts and tabs that never closed. She felt like a complete fraud. She was surrounded by the world's greatest art, yet all she could think about was her unread notifications. One evening, ducking out of a sudden biting downpour that soaked through her wool coat, she stepped into a quiet wood-paneled pub tucked away in a cobblestone alley near the Tate Modern. The air inside smelled of old books, rain, and bitter ale. There, tucked into a shadowed corner booth, sat Alistair. Alistair was a legend, a world-renowned architect in his late 70s, whose buildings defined the skylines of New York, London, and Singapore. Clara recognized him instantly from design textbooks. But what struck her wasn't his fame. It was his presence. He moved with a terrifyingly calm grace. There was no smartwatch buzzing on his wrist, no phone sitting face down on the table. He was simply there. He was inhabiting the moment entirely. Finding a rare moment of courage, Clara approached him. What started as a brief greeting turned into a desperate confession. "I'm running a race with no finish line," she told him, her voice trembling. "I work until I collapse. I scroll until I go numb, and I wake up feeling like I've already lost the day before it's even begun. How do you stay so still?" Alistair set down his fountain pen, leaned back, and looked right through the noise of her anxiety. His eyes were steady. "The problem, Clara, is that you are trying to design on a cluttered site," he said, his voice a low, melodic rumble. "In architecture, we don't just start building. We prepare the ground. We survey the soil. We clear the debris. If the site is littered with the trash of yesterday, the most beautiful structure in the world will eventually fail. You aren't resting, my dear. You are just pausing the chaos. You haven't learned how to close the tab." That conversation, held in the amber glow of a London pub while the rain lashed against the windows, changed everything. Alistair's philosophy wasn't a rigid set of rules. It was an architecture for the human mind. He taught Clara that the night is not a void to be filled, but a foundation to be laid. When Clara returned to Brooklyn, she took that ancient wisdom and distilled it into a 30-minute ritual designed for the modern high-tech world. This wasn't just sleep hygiene. This was a cognitive reset. She broke it down into 3 distinct phases, 10 minutes each. The first 10 minutes. The emotional offload. The ritual begins with a physical act of separation. The phone is not allowed in the bedroom. It stays in the kitchen, plugged in and silenced. Clara spent these first 10 minutes with a physical notebook, no screens, just ink and paper. She performed what she called a brain dump. She wrote down every lingering stressor, the email she forgot to send, the snarky comment from a client, the anxiety about her taxes. But she also wrote down her wins, no matter how small. By moving these thoughts from the nebulous space of her mind onto the physical reality of the page, she was sending a clear signal to her subconscious. "I have recorded this. It is safe. You are officially allowed to let it go now." The next 10 minutes, environment curation. Alistair had told her, "Your space is your mind. If your desk is covered in old coffee cups and crumpled papers, your brain remains in work mode." Clara spent the next 10 minutes resetting her physical world. She would hang up her coat, clear her workspace for the following morning, and transition her lighting. She swapped the overhead LEDs for warm amber lamps. She introduced a sleep scent, a specific blend of cedarwood and lavender. This was a Pavlovian trigger. Over time, her nervous system learned that when the air smelled like cedar and the lights went low, the work self was officially offline. She was no longer a designer. She was a human being preparing for rest. The final 10 minutes. The gratitude echo. The final stage was the most profound. Instead of worrying about the future, Clara practiced active gratitude. She didn't just list things she was thankful for. She replayed them in her mind like a movie. She focused on the micro wins, the way the morning sunlight had hit her desk at a perfect angle, the rich taste of her first cup of coffee, the smile of a stranger on the subway. This wasn't toxic positivity. It was neurological rewiring. By ending her day focusing on what went right, she was training her brain's amygdala to stop looking for threats and start looking for opportunities. The transition was not a cinematic miracle. It didn't happen overnight. In fact, that first week was grueling. Clara felt the phantom vibrations in her pocket. Her thumb would twitch, reaching for a phone that wasn't there. She felt a strange, hollow anxiety in the silence. But by day 7, something shifted. The gray fog she had carried since London finally began to dissipate. She found herself waking up 4 minutes before her alarm, not with a jolt of panic, but with a sense of lightness. The digital hangover was gone. By day 14, her emotional buffer, had fully formed. When a difficult client sent a scathing email at 2 p.m., Clara didn't spiral into a tailspin. She met the challenge with a calm, detached professionalism. Her creativity returned with a vengeance. She wasn't just executing tasks anymore. She was innovating. She was seeing patterns and solutions that had been hidden behind the noise for years. By day 21, the transformation was complete. Clara realized a shocking truth: by protecting her nights, she had actually expanded her days. She was now getting more high-level work done in 4 hours of deep focus than she used to accomplish in 12 hours of frantic busyness. She was no longer a slave to the scroll. She was the architect of her own time. We often avoid the quiet of the night because we're afraid of what we'll find there. We use our phones as shields to protect us from our own thoughts. We're afraid that if we stop scrolling, we'll have to face the fact that we aren't exactly where we want to be. But Alistair was right. You cannot build a masterpiece on a cluttered site. You are not a machine that needs to be fixed or optimized for maximum output. You are a human being who needs to be restored. Your worth is not measured by your productivity. It is found in your presence. Tonight, I am extending a challenge to you: the 30-minute sovereignty trial. I am not asking you to overhaul your entire life. I am not asking you to quit your job or move to a cabin in the woods. I am simply asking for 30 minutes tonight. 1. 10 minutes to write down every thought looping in your mind. Get it out of your head and onto paper. 2. 10 minutes to tidy your immediate environment, dim the lights, and signal to your body that the day is over. 3. 10 minutes to sit in the stillness and find 3 tiny things to be truly grateful for. That is all it takes to start. Do this for 7 days. I promise you the person who wakes up on day 8 will be unrecognizable to the person reading this right now. You will have a clarity and a hunger for life that you thought you had lost forever. The night doesn't just end your day, it creates your tomorrow. The question is, what kind of tomorrow are you building tonight? Leave a comment below and tell me, what is the one digital distraction you are cutting out tonight? Let's hold each other accountable.